Welcome to Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Microsoft Speakers Community Call. This is November 7th, 2023 edition. And in this call, we always have Microsoft presenters with a certain exceptions, like today, where we're going to actually have an external presenter. We'll talk about that one in a second. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a Principal Product Manager in the Microsoft 365 platform areas and here to help you to get started and get moving in the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform topics. Now, today, we'll start with the latest updates and news on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, so capturing what has happened within the last week and going once again through some of the assets which are available for you to get started. Every single week, we have a new people joining on this call, and that is recapping those assets is important for us. If you feel that we're repeating too much, you can join up a few minutes late. It's okay, and you'll catch up on the demos as well. Now, after that intro section, we'll go to the demos, and then Wahlin is going to start with integrating your organizational data to Azure Open AI service with Microsoft Graph, and that is really interesting topic. So taking advantage of that NLP, the natural language processing capabilities in OpenAI with your organizational data. Super cool stuff. Then Raghav Mishra is the non-Microsoft person here, and he's going to talk about his best day solution, which was part of the Power Platform AI Hackathon, which was happening in September. So that's a really cool AI integration story as well. Now, and the last demo will be me talking about a bit about how can you take your existing SharePoint Framework solution and continue developing that directly within the Teams Toolkit. This is a new feature, relatively new feature in the Teams Toolkit, which gives you the capability of importing any existing SharePoint Framework solution and kind of get it included in the Teams Toolkit development process. So two about OpenAI, then one about Teams development, all up within the Microsoft 365. Now, give me one more. Here we go, clicking that chat available there so I can see all of the nice gifts going on over there. Now, quick recap on all of the different assets which are available for you to take advantage. We have YouTube channel where we publish all of the recordings of this call, so you cannot access the recording directly from the chat or after the call. We'll publish that in 24 hours in the YouTube channel. And a lot of other stuff is getting published there as well. So we're releasing at least one video every single business day within the channel, showcasing the art of possible with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. We have our LinkedIn group for discussions and updates that's closing in the 1,000 attendees already within less than a year, so it's growing really fast. Super cool. We have also a lot of open source assets available for you to take advantage and to contribute on. But if you're looking into some samples, for example, in Power Platform or in Microsoft Teams development or in the Craft development or wherever, the easiest way to find them is by using our unified sample gallery. So one centralized location, you can go, just use the search queries or filter the products based on the types what you're looking for, and then you find the samples provided by Microsoft or the community members. A lot of URLs to remember. Luckily, it's only one, which is AKMS Community Home, from where you can find all of those things. Now, I did mention that the community call demos are getting published through the YouTube channel, and we do have quite a lot of them. You are in one of those calls. You are in the Tuesday 8 a.m. community call, which is happening every single Tuesday 8 a.m. Pacific time, where we have the Microsoft presenters always showcasing the art of possible within Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. On top of this, we have the Power Platform monthly call, which is typically community demos, and the most popular call actually all up, because with that call is having up to 600, 700 attendees in every single month. So super cool. We also have the Office Admin monthly call happening again this week. And then we have our 7 a.m. Thursday series, which is either Microsoft 365 Power Platform or Viva Connection and SharePoint Framework development calls where we typically have community demos. So we're really interested on showcasing what people are building across the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform within real-world scenarios. So not just by us as a Microsoft telling that, hey, you can build cool stuff. Let's have a look on those cool things. You can download the recurrent invites from AKMS Community Calls, and you can always check the agendas, advance on the calls at the AKMS Community Meetup, which is a great way of staying up to date what's available. Now, I did mention the community demos. This is a great way for you to demonstrate what you have built. If you're looking into getting an MVP status, maybe sign up. We'll get you a few demo spots in these calls, and that is a great way of getting acknowledged as a contribution for your MVP status or renewal of your MVP status. Or maybe you want to have that safe environment and use this call to test out or or to showcase what you have built before you go to the in-person conferences. Great option as well. We'll even guide you with a presentation body systems on what you should be preparing when you do the demo. So sign up for this. Everybody is welcome to do demos within this course. Good question from Stephanie on the chat. Hopefully somebody mentions that. Now, get started assets on Microsoft Cloud. So we have our Microsoft 365 developer program. You will get a free tenant, which will renew automatically in 90 days, as long as you use it for developer purposes. And then there's a free learning materials available within the Microsoft Learns. Please do take advantage on all of this stuff. A lot of free stuff for you to take advantage. We also have a lot of different shows available for you to take advantage and check them out. In these shows, we always talk about the latest on what's happening in the Microsoft Cloud. From a different perspective. Every single show have their own a bit of a different perspective, what they take on, and some of the shows are happening bi-weekly, some of them happening weekly, some of them happening more rarely than that. But great opportunities of staying up to date on what's happening. I did mention already our sample gallery. We have now 720 samples, I think was the last number. We just had a meeting around the future development within this gallery. So a lot of samples for you to take advantage. Pretty soon that number is going to jump a bit because we're getting all of the Teams FX, Teams Toolkit samples listed actually in there as well. So all of the organizations within Microsoft are pushing on the same objective and surfacing their samples from one location, which is awesome. We're finally setting up or creating that one centralized location where you can find all of the samples from Microsoft or from community, which is awesome. Now, as you find a sample, you might be wondering on, oh my God, what do I do now? There's a sample, but how do I actually use that? And that's why we have our Sharing is Caring initiative. And David is in the call to quickly recap what this is all about.
Yes, I will be brief today because we have so many good things to talk about further than this. So Sharing is Caring program that is here to provide you all a hands-on way of being guided through the community, using the samples or contributing to the samples. We have created some videos with April's team. We are setting up some office hours as well. Hugo is back from vacation now, so we're starting to get some of those schedules in place. We know that everybody's kind of hibernating back into the house with winter being here and coming. So it's a great opportunity to get involved with the community. Definitely reach out if you have any questions. You can learn more. Keep an eye out at ak.ms/sharingiscaring. And once you have contributed, we absolutely want to recognize you. And this is our famous community recognition program, or infamous, because infamous means more than famous, right? Anyways, all right. Enough. Three amigos, right? Okay, so we got some brand new badges coming up, of course. So Slice of Samples just came out. Season of Getting just came out. In fact, some of those badges just got sent out today. So if you have contributed already in November, keep an eye out on your email because you got a badge. If you haven't, you just need to register and opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition, and we will absolutely recognize you. Fill it in, no cost. We cover the cost. So definitely get involved. It's a great way to associate these to your LinkedIn profile, Twitter profile, blog, resume, or all the above. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, from LA. I have to call out, we're closing into 2,000 contributed batches. So great work, David, on this one. Awesome program. And it's great to see the interest. So more than 2,000 or closing into 2,000 batches contributed for people. Awesome. Now, quick recap on what's happening on the event side of the house. Ignite next week is fully booked for in-person experience, but there's an online option. So you do want to register and check all of the different sessions which are available next week. And some of the sessions are available as on demand, and some of the sessions are live coming from the Seattle. So great way of knowing what's happening and what are the latest announcements. There's a lot of interesting announcements coming up next week. Now, within a few weeks, we also have the European SharePoint conference coming up, where we talk about the Microsoft 365 and Azure topics, not just SharePoint, even though the naming is SharePointEurope.com. But that's going to be a big event with Microsoft presence, a lot of MVPs, a lot of community members in Amsterdam. Looking forward on that one as well. On next spring, we have April 13th. We'll start this. Is April 13th, May 1st and 2nd. We have the Microsoft 365 conference coming up this time at Orlando, and we're looking into making this one as the most the biggest Microsoft 365 conference to date, but it's good to book those dates already. So making sure that you're aware of them before we start actually updating all of the details on sessions and all of that. Currently, there's a call for content going on this one. So if you're looking into presenting in Orlando, you can still submit your sessions if you are a MVP or a community member who wants to present in these kind of conferences. We'll be definitely there as well for you to take advantage. Now, we also have the Educon conferences coming up next year. We have Seattle, DC, and Dallas coming 2024, starting from June 3rd to 7th in Seattle, and then DC and Dallas later in 2024. It's weird to talk about something that's happening in November 2024, even though it's November 2023. But hey, it's good to be aware of what's happening within the future. And there's a lot of events happening all around the world within the community side. Some of these are free, some of them have a small cost associated to them, some of them are in person, some of them are online. But communitydays.org is your location to go into, and you'll see all of the different events available for you to attend. Super cool stuff. Now, this week, a lot of not a massive amount of news, but a lot of news kind of getting into that Ignite mode. So we can imagine that during Ignite next week, there's going to be so much new news available. Just to call out a few things here, we announced the Meet experience within Microsoft Teams, which is really, really cool. All of the details around your meetings from one central location. So meeting recordings, meeting summaries, all of that stuff from that particular application. There's also this monthly summaries coming up from Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, and also a great summary on what's new on Power Apps October 2023, a feature update. So summarizing all of the cool things on that side. On the Microsoft 365 developer side, SharePoint Framework 1.18.1 just went live 1 hour ago as a GA version on that, and a lot of other improvements in the Microsoft 365 development as well. Not going to list all of them in here. The links are on the chat. You can get them from there. Now, before we go to the actual demos then today, let's do a quick group photo. Let's see how well this works today. So I will flip everybody to together mode, and I will move you into the picture in a second. And here we go. Moving. Crossing fingers. Yes, I can see Dan. Ooh, it's pixel perfect almost. This is amazing. We have few seats still in the room. I'm not going to enable my camera because now it's pixel perfect. I will start the Camtasia as we're waiting for people to come in and join. In here, there's 50 seats in the room. 50 seats, a lot of familiar faces, really, really cool. A few more seats in the room. Let's wait a few more seconds. I'm not going to start recording until we're hitting at least 40. Not yet. Wait, Brad, wait. You're doing a really good example on the top though. And Hugo, you can do the example. Oh, there we go. Now we're doing waves. Really, really cool. There's Joel. There's a lot of familiar names and faces. Cool. Let me put the recording on, and we'll grab a GIF animation out of this and share it in social media. And I can see a cat. Excellent. And let's do some hand waving, everybody. Awesome to have you go. David in the middle is doing the example. There we go. Awesome. And April in the front as well. Excellent. Good to see so many familiar faces. Awesome stuff. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that. So thank you for that. And then we'll go to the actual starts of the day. So as said, we'll start with a Dan Wahlin, and we kind of focus on integrate your organizational data to Azure Open AI services with Microsoft Graph. And after that, we'll go to Raghav. Dear Camtasia, don't come in front of it. Here we go. Raghav around Power AI hack winners, and then we'll demo some stuff after that. But I think, Dan, you are ready to go. So let's start with your demo.
All right, folks, it is good to be back. I think we're on session 8 or 9. I need to recount, but we're going to continue down this path of talking about kind of 3 main pillars again. We have the AI sections we've covered, and I'll talk about those again in case you missed them. We have the communication, which we just wrapped up last week, Azure Communication Services. And now we're going to switch our focus to what are some of the things you could do to prevent people like me from going to look for something in Outlook, OneDrive, some other location. You know, I need a document, I need a chat in Teams, I need something like that. And then if you're like me, you go down that rabbit hole and, 20 minutes later, you come back up sometimes and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't even get what I was looking for because you got distracted, right? And, that's pretty common because we're all doing so many things and, we try not to multitask because that's not super efficient, it turns out, but we do. So what we're going to talk about now is how can we actually get started bringing organizational data into apps. Now, you're all familiar and have heard of, I suspect, or at least most of you, Microsoft Graph. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot. But we're going to talk about some new things that you may or may not have seen that are in something called the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. Now, today's goal is really just to focus on how do you get started with this. I know a lot of you have seen what I'm going to show you here, but be sympathetic and empathetic to those who are new to this and they want to learn how to do it too. So we're going to go through the artist formerly known as Azure Active Directory, now Microsoft Entra ID, and how you can get started there. But before I go too much further, let's review what we're kind of going through in this app. So first off, we started off with these sessions on assisting users with AI. And this was all about adding creativity, productivity, those type of ivity words, I guess you could say, into your applications. And these are all recorded. So if you're interested, you can go to the playlist up on the YouTube channel and you can get this type of information. From there, we went into the communication features. We just wrapped up email and SMS sending last week, but we also talked about things like how you could add phone calling right into an app. Again, to avoid that context shift and that wasting time that we all do because we have to jump to some other app, or in this case, pick up a phone. Now we're going to go into this, bring organizational data into apps. And we're going to start off with the beginning, which is creating the app registration. But from there, we're going to talk about some different features that you can either write code for, or you could use web components for. You're going to see the web component route is a lot less code, and I'll get to that in the next few sessions over the next 3 or so weeks here. So let's jump into the demo again. For those that are maybe here and have not seen this, this is all based on a tutorial that you can get to today. I'll have a link for this at the end. You can either scan it or go to the link. But the app itself is just a really simple line of business app. And those that have been here all 8 times, you're like, okay, Dan, thank you so much. We've seen it 8 times. Again, I know there's probably some folks that are maybe seeing this for the first time, though. So a couple things you can do in this app. It has natural language to SQL. We talked about that because there's a lot of caveats you should worry about there. We talked about when it comes to Open AI, how you could, generate and help. Order is delayed 2 days. Write like Shakespeare. How you spell Shakespeare? Shakespeare, or something like that. And then have it generate emails and SMSs, and then you can send this. And actually, that's not as good of Shakespeare as normally. But anyway, we'd have to play with that prompt a little more today anyway. Last time it was pretty good. And then we could send SMS, we could send email, those type of things. And then we also talked about things like phone calling. How you could actually call directly. And right now, my number's still hard-coded here, so we could call it. But the order of today and then the 3 sessions they're going to follow is this. You'll notice we have this view-related content. So imagine for a moment, put yourself in place of the user, and they're working with a form, a data grid. And that's why I did a data grid, because a lot of us have data grids. Or some other aspect of your system where they need to go get additional information on occasion. They need to go find that document that's related, that email, that Teams chat, that whatever it is that's in Microsoft 365 that they've worked with. So if I click on, for instance, a datum corporation here, what this is going to do is use some of these different components we're going to talk about to actually go out and say, okay, for a datum corporation, what do we have in the way of files that this user, this is specific to the user, has created or worked with? And this goes to OneDrive for Business. What Teams chats do they have about this customer? None in this case, but I'll have some others I'll show you. What emails? And these are all made up email, of course. What calendar events? And you can see they've had a couple calendar events with them. Now let's go down to maybe Tailwind traders because they have a little more data. And you'll notice they also have some documents here, and we can click on these to get information. And then we could also go and click on these to go to the Teams chats. And that way, I, as the user, am not having to jump to Teams or Outlook or OneDrive or whatever it is. I can actually bring that all in and just have it right there for the user. So much easier. And then, of course, they can even search. You know, if I type Tailwind Traders 2, it's not going to find anything because there isn't one. But you could do keyword search and things like that. So how do you kind of integrate all this together? Well, those that have done some Microsoft Graph, you know the answer here. But for those that haven't, we can leverage the APIs that are out there in Microsoft 365 through Microsoft Graph. And we could either A, write all this by hand, or B, we could use web components. Now, this app actually has both ways, and we're going to talk about that over the next 3 weeks that are coming up. The focus is going to be on all of these were actually rendered using web components from Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And there's some new functionality that some of you probably haven't seen that we're going to talk about that is in here. So that's kind of the agenda of what we're after. Now, before you can even do that, though, this app needs to be part of what we call an app registration, because you'll notice I'm logged in. I have my developer tenant here, which if you are new to this, you can get a free developer tenant and get all your Microsoft 365 environment set up. Highly encourage you to set one of those up. I use it all the time for not only demos, but just trying out things as well. So the first thing we would have to do, though, is we would need to come into either the Azure portal or use the Azure CLI and come into the artist formerly known as Azure Active Directory or Microsoft Intra ID now. And we'd have to set up what's called an app registration. You'll see that on the left. I can probably zoom that one more. And let's go into this guy. Now, you're going to notice I have quite a few app registrations. This particular tenant right here has a lot of demo things in it. So most of this is just demo. This Angular MGT here, that is the sample app, actually. That's what I'm using. But we would go in and create a new registration, give it a name, and then we would need to choose what type of accounts are allowed to get to this. Is it okay if it's accounts in any organizational directory, any tenant? Can it include things like Skype and Xbox? Or is it just locked down to this one tenant? So you need to kind of choose what you want to do there. Really depends on your company and how you set things up. Okay, but the tutorial will walk you through this and discuss a little more of these options if you want to go through that. Now, from there, a really, really important part of this, and this is where when I first got started with this, I struggled a little bit, was the platform. You know, what am I building here? Because you saw this is a web app, right? It's a web app. But it's actually something I'm going to be calling from the front end. So I selected a single page application. And then for development purposes, you could go in, well, if you have HTTPS for development, great. But normally you'll have like localhost, some port, right? So localhost 3000 maybe if you're doing, some of those different front end type projects, or for this one, it'd be 4200. And you would put that in. Now the service tree, I'm not going to go into because that's optional, but you would just register that. Now, once you register it, if I go back to here, remember I have all these, and some of these are really kind of old. I'm not really using them. So I'm going to go to this one because I don't really care if you see some of the stuff here. Well, okay, I have my filter on, but you'll notice that there's an app ID, an object ID, and a tenant ID or director ID. All right, 2 of these I'm going to be using, and I'll show you that and how they're being used in just a moment. But once you set this app up, you're going to get these IDs that you can use. Now, again, you gurus out there that are already doing this every day, you're used to this, but I'm assuming some of you probably haven't done this quite as much. But that's what I did first to get this application where I could actually do something with it. Now, there's a little more to the story. I won't have time to go through everything. You'll notice, for instance, over here, you can go into permissions. And I do want to just mention really quickly, this is where if you want to pre-add, for instance, some Microsoft Graph permissions or scopes, you'll see, you kind of have a choice here. Do you want your application to access the API as the user? So in other words, the user signed in and then it delegates as the user. Or do you want the application, this could be, for instance, an API. This was something we did a series of sessions on audio video communication into Teams meetings. And that was one where a backend API was used to make the graph calls. Well, in that case, we set up app permissions, okay? Because we weren't flowing the user permission all the way through to the API. They had to log in, they had to validate with the API, but then we let the API take over from there. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. But in this case, this is an app that is delegated, meaning that when the user logs in, we're only going to be able to get to the stuff that is for this one user, whereas the other option, we could, of course, get to more potentially. Okay. This is the one I tend to go with because I prefer least privilege where possible. But now we can come in and here's an example. There's email. So I could say, yeah, email. I want to get to the user's profile. You'll notice there right up top. I can get to some profile information here. This is just my fake stuff, but still. All right. So once you do that, that could set it up in advance. Now, I'm going to show you, though, for this app, we're actually doing it a little bit differently. And I'll get to that code here now that we've seen this. So if you, again, go through the tutorial, if you're new to this, it'll walk you through this, what you need to set up. It's not hard. It's just a matter of spending a little bit of time going through the steps. Okay, so now that we've seen that, let's turn our focus to, all right, how do we actually use this? Well, first off, if I go into my package JSON here, you're going to notice that I have this Microsoft MGT, okay? There's even a newer version of this. I need to probably update it at some point. But this is what I'm going to be using behind the scenes to actually make these calls that we're going to do. However, I'm also going to show you that we could actually use 100% code to do this if we want. We'll get into that again in the next 3 weeks. For today, though, we have this service. This is a reusable front-end service. Think of it just as a file that can do some of these graph calls. That's the name, Graph Service TS. And you're going to notice that if we don't have this thing called a global provider configured, we're going to configure it. Now, what is this providers thing? Well, let's go up top here. There's that Microsoft MGT. That's Microsoft Graph Toolkit again. And then you're going to notice we have this MSAL2 provider, providers, provider state, some of these symbols that we're importing up top. Well, what we're doing here is I'm saying, has this already been set up? If it hasn't, I'm going to log out because this is a demo app, initializing. And then we're going to say, let's set up a global provider. Now it's global to this app, okay? And what we're going to do is feed into this Microsoft Authentication Library, MSAL, provider. We're going to feed some data from that Azure portal. So we're going to feed the client ID and we're going to feed the scopes. Now, there will be some scopes that you'll have to go in and add as appropriate because they might need even more permissions. I'm not going to go into that right now, but notice we're going to get things like, yeah, I want to be able to read the user information. I want to get their presence. Not really using that, but that's where if we go here, and you'll notice here you can't really see anything, but I could add a little bit of extra work to say, I don't know, put maybe a green circle around this person if they're available, or a red circle around them if they're in a meeting, something like that. That would be presence. We're going to get to chats, calendars, channel messages, files, mail, all that fun stuff. So we're going to set that up. And that is the magic to get us to what we're going to cover. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek here of what we're going to cover coming up here. So remember that we could get to things like files, right? There's a couple ways we could do that. Now that the provider is set up and it knows about the app registration, you notice I'm getting these from environment variables here that are passed in during the build process. They're not passed in live because some of this stuff you would only want for the build. But notice we go down to search files. I actually have some code here to make calls out using that global provider. Okay, and notice I can say graph, client, API, and I want to go to the search APIs. But I want to search specifically for this type of information, drive items, and then the filtering I'm going to do is a datum corporation or Tailwind Traders or name of a person, whatever the query is goes here. And then I'm looking specifically for documents, okay? Now, from there, I'd have to do a little bit of work to iterate through the results and do all that. But Here's what we're going to start covering next week. You could do all that, or you could just do that right there and be done with it. That is actually what's being used to render this and most of these. Some of these I do have to use code to go get the data, but this right here, this is actually being rendered just with this little bit of, wrong way. This little bit of code right here, MGT search results. So if you haven't heard about this, we're going to talk about it starting next week. This is a very new MGT component. I love it because you see all this code down here? Quite a bit of code, right? I don't need most of that now. I can write it what we'd call declaratively or imperatively. This is imperative code where you're writing everything. This would be more declarative code. Way easier to work with, and I'll talk about how you can work with this again next week because there are some things I want to point out you can do. So that's what we're going to get into, but that introduces, and I'm at the end of time here, so that introduces kind of how we're starting to pull that data in. I would wrap up by saying if you're not currently thinking about pulling this type of data in, it's a good time to think about it because we're already distracted enough, right? So why not bring the data the users need right to the users in the app, and you could build a reusable component and make this available in all your apps potentially. So with that, let me go to the last little part, and I'll turn it back over to Vesa because I am out of time. But if you scan this code or go to this URL, you can get to the tutorial that'll walk you through this. Real quick pumping of an event tomorrow. If you're interested in GitHub Copilot, we're going to be doing a Copilot adventure stream with VS Code. We just did one with Visual Studio yesterday, but tomorrow's will be with VS Code. Go check that out if you're interested. Lots of good stuff. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Vesa. Thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Really, really cool stuff. And I love those Craft Toolkit controls. They help so much to simplify the code. Now, definitely. Raghav, I can see you on a call. It's time to move on your screen. Let's double check the audio as well.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm sharing my content.
Yep. Excellent. We can see the slides. Yep, we can see your screen. We can see the slide. We can hear you. I think we're good. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for your lovely presentation on that Android and the Azure authentication, those things. And now I'm starting with my demo. It's regarding the Make Life Easy, which I've taken part in the Microsoft, the Power Platform Global AI Hack. So firstly, I like to say thanks to the Power Platform Global AI Hack team for organizing the hackathon event, which has given a good opportunity to everyone to learn the OpenAI, also the ChatGPT, DALL-E, all the services to integrate in our Power Platform. So when I started working on the idea of the building the app, initially I considered to creating for the business process, where this business process is for the using AI to generate the invoices or doing a lot of stuff with ChatGPT, all these things. But I got an idea here from my family. Is that my wife and I are proud parents to a delightful 5-year-old kid who is on the autism spectrum. So as a caregiver, our primary focus was to simplify our son's life and son life. Basically, the autistic children tends to thrive on the structured process, necessitating on the constant guidance through each step. So my wife and I basically do a substantial amount of time writing and illustrating a visual and text-based task list for our son. So due to this, I motivated for desire to alleviate her burden, and I embarked to the journey making a app which is Make Life Easier. It's a Canvas app which is specially designed for the autistic children for doing their daily routine activity. The app has the primary goal is to simplify and enhance the lives of both parents and the children by providing visual and the text-based guidance for the various daily activities. So in this app, their key features were the visual and the text-based task list, customizable activities, scheduling, then accessibility features, user-friendly design, and feedback and improvement. The main purpose of this app was the enhancing the daily lives of the autistic children and their parents. So this was the manual handwritten step. If you see here, sorry, here, which is written by my wife, like the daily activity by for the kid, who's like a simple activity which we usually do. We learn about those things, but the autistic kid have to learn, or we have to show them visualize step for each activity here. So we usually do like this by writing and giving some images or their thing. So from there, we are moving to this scheduler board where it has all the steps to perform the activity. And with the help of Azure AI and Canvas app, parent can build this app according to their requirement. So this is a high-level design of this app where I'm using the Power Apps Dataverse for the storing the data. Also Azure Open AI DALI services to generate the text, also the images through the DALI. Next step was the demo. Here, so I'm sharing my screen here. So this is the main screen of this app where we have a two portion here where this user will log in like as a parent or as a child. So when I log in as a parent, here I have to ask ChatGPT to generate a visualized steps. So like I am adding here steps for yeah. So here we get all the steps from the ChatGPT for which I like the steps are here 1 to 11, where I select this to save into my database. And I got the list here, which I searched previously also, the thing which I need to use for the creating an image. Like if I am using this step here, so I get all the step and I want to create images for that. I click here. And now those whole steps converted to a gallery with the individual records here with the prompt. And if I click here, so I get the prompt on the text box with now I will ask DALI here to generate the images. So it's a basic image here. And I can change a lot of things here with changing like generating a animated image or a real image, those things. And when I select one image here, and I can use an existing scheduler board or I can create a new one here. And I'm adding this task here to the scheduler board. Like same way, we will now go to the next step. It will be around 10 or 12 steps according to the parent, how they want to add in for their kid. And like we got this, then again, I'm selecting this and adding to my scheduler task. Then after when I'm finishing, I'm changing to the next. where I will select the scheduler board here. Now, if you see, it has two images. If I go to remove shoe step, previous one, which had two. This one I have generated previously, so it has multiple images. So like I assign brush teeth to my kid here, and I'm changing status to active and assign. Now this brush teeth scheduler board is assigned to Kesar. Now when he log into his app, and he can see there are two brush teeth and remove shoes. Brush teeth with the visual. Also here we have all the steps were written here. So remove shoes is this one. Also, I was thinking to add the print PDF, this print PDF functionality in my Canvas app, so that a parent can print this page and can put this in the, like for the remove shoes, we can put in our front door. Removing shoes, they print that page and put in their washroom. So this is the way I want to help parents who need some help regarding the specifics. Thank you. Also, now I'm saying this is my personal like my email ID, also the LinkedIn profile. Also, I put this app on the GitHub, so you can access from there. Thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Raghav. Absolutely brilliant scenario. So really, really cool, and a real world scenario, and such an important scenario helping for those cases. So thank you for sharing that. That was really, really cool. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Now I feel bad about actually going back to technology and a bit of a more technical demo right after that, because that was real world scenario for sure. Thank you for that. Good. Now, the last demo of today is going to be about importing or import an existing SharePoint Framework solution and continue developing with Microsoft Teams. So technically, so let me actually go in here. So what we're going to talk about here is a new functionality within the Microsoft Teams Toolkit, which I think it was part of the first version of version 5, where we can easily import an existing SharePoint Framework solution and continue developing using the Microsoft Teams Toolkit and the SharePoint Framework for within your tenant. So we know that there's a lot of tens and tens of millions of monthly active users for custom SharePoint Framework solutions out there, and you can use the SharePoint Framework regardless of the name. You can actually use it within the Microsoft Teams as an extensibility platform. And there's a lot of actually usage on that side as well, because SharePoint Framework gives you the capabilities of automatic hosting, single sign-on, all of that things. It's super easy to implement that stuff. Now, and especially there's so much existing investments in a SharePoint Framework, and quite often people actually want to have the same functionality in multiple different locations. You might want to build a web part in SharePoint, and then you want to expose that as a Microsoft Teams tab, and you can easily do that without any code changes. And that's pretty mind-boggling and easy to do with SharePoint Framework. Now, with SharePoint Framework, we started with SharePoint, and that's where the name is coming from. And then we extended to Microsoft Teams, then we extended to Microsoft Viva, and then we extended to Outlook and Microsoft 365 app, which is used to be also known as Office.com or Microsoft 365.com. So you can actually use the SharePoint Framework to build in all of these capabilities. And the coolest thing here was the automatic code hosting. So you can build a code powered by, you write the code using TypeScript. It will be converted to JavaScript, and then it will be automatically hosted for you. So you don't have to worry about asking somebody to spin up an Azure instances to host your code. You can just host the code directly within any Microsoft 365 tenant for free. And that's actually a pretty cool thing. And obviously, everything is based on industry standards. So it's a web stack tooling. You can use Angular, React, whatever is your chosen JavaScript framework within here. Now, today we're going to do a quick demo, step-by-step demo on using the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. So a scenario where you have already implemented something, for example, as a Microsoft, as a SharePoint web part, and Of course, SharePoint Web Part works as such in the Microsoft Teams as a Teams tab, but you want to take advantage of the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. So what would be the steps of actually walking through migrating the existing SharePoint Framework solution to work together with Microsoft Teams Toolkit, which, by the way, obviously still means that it's a SharePoint Framework solution. So you can use Human Generator as is, you can use all of the SharePoint Framework scenarios as is, but you actually get that Teams Toolkit functionalities and a shell on top of the SharePoint Framework solution. That's what this is all about. The advantages of using the Teams Toolkit is definitely the easy F5 debugging. So it is actually in matter of seconds even, right after you obviously need to run the npm install once, but right after that, it's a matter of seconds. You can actually debug your solution directly within a Microsoft Teams in Outlook or Microsoft 365 app because there's a dynamic workbench which is available for you over there. And that makes it super easy to implement scenarios with SharePoint Framework directly within the Microsoft 365. There's also support for multi-tabs in SPFX solution, all of that stuff. But today we're going to focus on importing existing SharePoint Framework solution as set to the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. And that was included in the V5 version, which is the latest version. And of course, from that moment forward, it is there in the future as well. Now, let's do a quick demo on this one, one step at a time. I played around with one specific scenario already yesterday, which I'm going to demo, but I'm going to show a simple, clean setup as well, because it's actually mind-bogglingly simple to do then debugging within the Microsoft Teams Toolkit with the code. So let's start with a quick situation where we are right now. So I have created I'm using SharePoint Framework 1.18. 1.18.1 is actually the latest version, which went live earlier today, but 1.18 is the one which I used here to create a web part solution. So now if I do a Visual Studio Code open up, we can actually see that this is a typical SharePoint Framework solution. Let me zoom a bit. Where's the button? There we go. Wrong direction. Zooming. There we go. Now we're zooming in. So this is a SharePoint Framework solution. I've created a one web part here called Cool Tab web part because it's uber cool. And so a basic setup is a SharePoint Framework web part. It's in this case, it's built using React and the basic shell is actually getting created in here. So nothing too special. This exists already. It might have been used already in SharePoint as a web part, but you want to get this one included in the Microsoft Teams Toolkit shell. And let's go through that steps directly within this Visual Studio Code window. So in my case, I'm going to go and open up Teams Toolkit. And as we are on top of existing SharePoint Framework solution, it does not detect that it's a SharePoint Framework solution because that's not how Teams Toolkit actually works. We need to create a shell solution on top of that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select a option, create a new application. Then I'm going to say I'm going to create a new tab. And then in the new tab selection, I'm going to use SPFX, which works in Teams, Outlook, and Microsoft 365 app, and obviously in SharePoint as well. But I can click that one, and then there's a new option available, which is import an existing solution, SharePoint Framework solution here, which we will actually click to start the process. So it is asking me to select what is the folder where we're going to actually start. And I'm actually pretty close. I'm almost in the same folder where we started. I need to just go to the simple React. That's the root folder of the solution, my SPFX solution. I will select that solution. The next question is, okay, where do you want to store this solution? So what is the location where you want to store? By default, it's using my C user, my user account name. I don't like my C drive to get filled with random samples. So I'm going to actually go here and I'm going to say, let's go to the E drive. Let's actually use that one as a quick path. And then I have PMP folder. And then let's do Teams apps. There we go. So I'm putting that in my E drive, which is a bit of a bigger file or a location. And I'm saying that this is the primary folder where I'm going to actually then import that existing SPFX solution. So let me select the folder. And then it's going to ask me, okay, so what is the solution name, what you're going to use within the Microsoft Teams Toolkit? And let's use the Cool tab because it's incredibly cool, right? So I'm going to click Start. I can now close the previous window in here because there's no value on that one. I'm going to extend in here, and our solution actually has been now migrated to the Teams Toolkit. And the way I can actually see that is that now if I go to the Teams Toolkit and open up Teams Toolkit from here, let me do that one more time. We can see that I'm inside of the Teams Toolkit in the Visual Studio Code solution. I'm connected to my example tenant. I actually signed in previously, but you could every single time you sign in, it will actually remember that signed in tenant. You can change that as well. I have the environmental settings, and I have the lifecycle settings and quick actions I can do directly from the left navigation. In my code structure, we can see that the folder structure, if you're familiar with SharePoint Framework structure, we can actually see that my web part is in here. So what happened was that we actually copied the SharePoint Framework solution to a folder called SRC, so as in the source, and then we created this parent folder where we have all of the Microsoft Teams Toolkit adjustments and settings and configurations. The cool thing about what this also means is that now that we did that in a matter of seconds, we can actually debug this incredibly easily. So now if I do run and debug, and I can say, let's start from Teams Workbench, or Outlook Workbench, or Microsoft Teams app, I can just say Teams Workbench, and in Teams, press play. I didn't do any adjustments, any things. Now, the only thing what we now need to actually wait is a bit of a wait time where we need to run the npm install within the solution, because we don't have currently all of the packages and all of that actually downloaded. But what happens here is that we're running basically validation of the Teams Toolkit adjustments and settings directly in Visual Studio Code, making it super easy that everything is working. And then we're running in here, we can see on the right side, we're running the command npm install for the solution. And this basically means that we're downloading all of the node module packages, making sure that that's happening. And obviously that's a one-time thing. So next time when I'm starting debugging, I don't need to wait this much, as long as I have a local copy of the node modules within my computer. So as I just created the solution and I haven't run npm install on top of this imported solution, I need to wait a few minutes to download all of these files in. Now, as we're waiting for this one, that went really, really fast. Wow. So let me go in here. Are we already done? Or did we actually have a deployment? No, we are all good. We are starting. The file npm install has been done. We are now doing the next steps. We are starting our local host server. We're copying the assets, so we're doing packaging, all of that stuff for the solution. And I didn't do anything else than saying import the solution and move it directly in this folder. That's actually really, really cool. Now it's actually spin up my browser window in here. And let me put that one a bit here, and let me go in here, and let me hide in that section. And then I need to sign in. So we can actually do the debugging. It will send me the verification code thing. So I'll do that within my browser. 62. Okay, 62. Security is important. And doesn't really matter. It depends on the machine. Are we going to stay in or not, or stay signed in or not within the debugging sessions? So now we're validating, we're running the code, debugging directly live within the Microsoft Teams Workbench, which is dynamically loaded. And again, I didn't do any adjustments. I just basically said, here's the solution, here's the SharePoint Framework solution, and I click F5 or manually the play icon in the window. And all of a sudden, magically, without any adjustments, everything is automatically done. We're loading the Teams. Here we go. Now it looks promising. It does the final warning. I need to install the solution. It does that automatically as well. Super cool. This time it was a really simple solution. I'm adding that to the tenant. That was one click. And here we go. And then it actually moves directly loading the code. And now we will get a warning here, which is basically, do we allow debug scripts? And this is a security browser debugging warning. And of course, we say, yeah, we're fine. We are a developer, and I know what to do. If you don't know what to do, click that one. We know what we're doing, right? I'm clicking that one. And voila, our application is running in the debug mode directly within Microsoft Teams. And that's really cool. So we can actually see the stuff getting loaded behind the scenes. If I refresh, we can see on the output window in here, all of the requests coming in, and we can start debugging. We can do F9, we can step in the code, we can check all of the variables and all of that stuff. And that's really, 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 really convenient. So extremely easy to do, and awesome work by the Teams Toolkit people on making it easy to reuse or adjust or do the shell in the Teams Toolkit for the SharePoint Framework solution, making it super easy to adjust things. Now, that's a really simple web part. I want to show actually a bit of a more complex one because we have plenty of time. So here we have a bit more complex one. I'm going to do run and debug and F5. I just tested this yesterday. That this is working properly. A bit more complicated SharePoint Framework solution because obviously they can be much more complicated. You can do multiple tabs, all of that stuff. In this case, we already done npm installation. We'll just run the startup. Clicking F5, all of the things happening. Let me go to the output window. We can actually see up there in the output window. There we go. Now it's starting, making sure that the trust service is completed. We're starting the web server here. We're doing the debugging. All of that is actually already automatically getting executed. We'll spin up at the browser in a second. Any second now. And again, it's the first time we do this. It takes a bit longer than thing. And of course, we do have the live refresh as well. So we can do adjustments on the code and do refreshing. And live reload is actually started on the port, as we can see in the terminal. That makes it easier for me to do then development on live. So I can adjust the code and it will live reload that within the Microsoft Teams as needed. In this case, this is a bit of a complex, more complex solution. So the initial Webpack does take a bit longer, but I definitely want to show you this because it's one of my favorite solutions. Whenever we actually get the Microsoft Teams starting, Webpack is taking a while. And if you would see me, I'm dancing, just consuming the time. If I would be on the stage, I would be dancing at this point, just to.
You'd be on top of the podium dancing.
That's true. That could happen. Absolutely. Now we're going to the Teams, loading the Teams, loading the Classic. I think we will be installing the solution unless I'm completely mistaken. Here we go. There's the solution. This is a sample which is available for you as well from our sample gallery, a retail Contoso sample. And here we go. We're loading the code. And yes, we know what we're doing. So we're loading the code and we're doing live debugging on the sample. Let me do dismiss on that one. It is a multi-tab solution. So there's an additional set of information and capabilities between the tabs. And as we're debugging, there's a bit of a delay as it's loading things, but it's actually a really, really cool looking solution and showcasing what you can actually build together with the SPFX also in Microsoft Teams, all of this information. And again, the sample is available for you within the GitHub. We'll get the sample in the notes of today's recording, so you know where to get started with this one as well. But it's a really, really cool scenario built with SharePoint Framework in Microsoft Teams. And of course, the cool thing here, again, is that I can do debugging in Outlook. It supports Outlook, it supports Microsoft 365 app, it supports SharePoint. So you can actually use exactly the same piece of code in all of these different applications. You don't need to rewrite anything. Pretty cool. Cool. That's it for that one. And we have a few links available on that one. And that is missing actually the demo link to the GitHub on that particular demo. I'll get that one added on the notes as well. Thank you, David, for copy pasting the links in there. That's it for that demo. Let's summarize the call. So next week, we have 3 really cool demos coming up again. We'll start with Nancy this time. She's going to talk about introduction to new Viva Connection version 3.0. So this is something which is, we've been teasing this a bit externally, but we are rolling out a new Viva Connection version, which has additional capabilities, additional options, which is really optimized for both desktop and mobile with additional announcements and news and all of that stuff. And Nancy is one of the PMs leading that development, and she's going to explain all of the options available there. Then Dan Wahlin is going to continue on this series related on OpenAI integration in Microsoft 365, and we're going to talk about that Graph Toolkit extensibility options. And then we have Daniel Karich, probably with other people as well, related on their Power AI hack, best AI-powered solution. Really, really cool scenario there as well. Now, during the wait times for next week and potentially the other community calls, you can always take advantage of our Discord server. If you have questions, if you need support, use that one. You can connect with other people in the community. I think we are close to 1,000 in here as well. So it is growing super fast, and we can see people helping each other within the Discord server as well. So please take advantage of that. We also are always asking for input around these calls. What would you like to see? Do you have demo ideas? What would you want to see? Is there an area which you haven't seen for a while and want to hear about from a certain topics within the Microsoft engineering side? Let us know. We'll follow up on those. And it's super important for us to know what I think about this demos and content, what is available. But that's it for today. We will get the recording available for you within the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community YouTube channel. You cannot access the recording directly from the chat after this call, even though it kind of indicates that you can, but you cannot. You can subscribe to the channel and you'll know when it's available. The next Microsoft 365 Power Platform with Microsoft speaker call is happening on November 14th. Really cool. That's all what we're going to do today. So thank you one more time for all of the presenters, and thank you for lovely active chat within the teams. So thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.